Hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Aventus CEO Shawn Mohr. Shawn, what's happening today? How are you?
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Anthony.
Excellent. So right now you're the CEO of Aventus. You've got a background in leading amazing organizations to get them from, point A to point Z. I guess it was round A to round C, and really driving cool projects forward. And then Aventus, obviously, or maybe not obviously, if you don't know what it is, at the heart of a very, very cool technology. Unknown in ways, unadopted in many other ways. Shawn, why don't you tell us, our listeners, a little bit about you, Aventus, and we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, again, thanks for the platform, Anthony. So, Aventus, we built a blockchain as a service and tokenization software platform that's capable of rapidly deploying and developing Web3 solutions across a variety of sectors at scale. And so at Aventus, we also provide tokenization capabilities to B2C firms looking to build brand loyalty and enhance digital revenue streams, while at the same time providing B2B solutions for back office challenges where digital ledger capability can provide massive amounts of security, interoperability, and efficiency in areas like logistics and manufacturing. So, in fact, Aventus is one of the few companies, honestly, that can marry the two B2C and B2C B component in a seamless end-to-end solution.
And I didn't even pay him to say that. No, I'm just joking. And tell us about, I'm going to ask you about what tokenization is, because I think that our leaders hear and see a lot of those things. And of course, or I would say in 2024, we're still at that early adopter stage, but the power of these technologies and what they're doing to decentralize and augment people's capabilities is really cool. But tell us about your leadership experience. How have you taken organizations from, tell us about your leadership experience, and then I'll get back to the technology side.
Yeah, so across 2.5 decades, not to date myself, I've been involved in helping really develop the strategic transformation strategy or revitalization strategy of bringing companies to a point of growth and scale, right? It's not easy to take an organization from a strategic perspective and really define both what your culture is, but how are you going to grow that culture into a repeatable, scalable revenue capability? And so I oftentimes get brought in after a company has either done a round of funding and or is looking to try, maybe having some challenges with their business and is trying to redefine, hey, how can we go to market and what is our long-term growth capability at scale? And so that's really what I've done across both publicly traded companies and early stage startups, and oftentimes growth companies that have maybe done a Series A or a Series B round and need to accelerate and pour gas on the fire. And those are the harder points where you really need to come in and both do the change management process, which is really imperative to a company at that point, and at the same time really develop a culture of leadership and radical candor that allows people to feel comfortable about the lived experience that they have and what it is that they are coming into so that they can participate in that change that we're trying to create in the company.
Awesome. And I see the parallels as I think of like technology innovation is known and relatively unknown, but then there's, the evolution of a company from a sales and growth perspective. And, we have a lot of CEOs, we have a lot of owner CEOs who think about cash, and they say, some of them might say, and many of them say, like, cash solves all problems. You might take the lens that revenue solves all problems. So my first question is there a distinction in your mind between cash and revenue?
Of course. At the end of the day, cash is a tool with the ability to then drive revenue capabilities, right? And so companies, for the most part, are valued based upon their ability to create repeatable, scalable revenue. And so cash is simply a tool of that. And whether it's a loan against assets or raise, either way, or even a publicly traded approach, most people don't realize that doing a public offering is really just a liquidity and a cash driven capability to drive more revenue, right? And so ultimately, you are valued on your success or failure based upon how you've done from a shareholder value perspective, and that's driven off of revenue.
And you don't need to be a big company to think like that. In fact, I would encourage you as a small company to be revenue focused. On my drive back to the, home podcast studio, I was thinking of a company that I know that invests in a lot of swag. And I'm like, well, I am a kind of go back to the fundamentals of making money kind of thing, organization. And so, cash does solve problems because you can address a lot of things and reinvest in the company. So from your perspective, you go into these companies and you address revenue creation. When we talked about inside the organization, there's the people side, the leadership side, the hiring, the training side, and then there's the operational side of understanding what levers you need to pull within the organization. And I guess the parallelness of people and process and systems. So can you tell me how you go about your process for identifying and adjusting systems and identifying and supporting people?
Right. So this might be a long answer. I'll try and do the best I can to keep it succinct. But the first thing I typically come in doing in any organization is determining the fundamental aspects of the basic foundation of the business. What cornerstones do you have that you can build off of? The second thing you do is you come in and assess the talent right away. The most important aspect of your business is the people that are on Zoom calls and or walk in and out of your door every single day, right? And so you really need, in order to scale properly, you have to have the right talent. And from there, you have to have the right ability to attract, hire, train, and retain the best talent that is possible for you to attract in your business. And so you come in and you do a full assessment of the organization. Then from there, you really say to yourself, what is it that we can do to create stair-stepped opportunities to get this company moving in the right direction? That momentum is what matters a ton, right? And all the way across the way, you have to have a buy-in across the shared and lived experience of those folks that are both in the company and the folks that you're trying to bring into the business. So I've had instances where I've had organizations that were literally, dropping 20% quarter over quarter that I've been brought into. So there are times where you have to create stability before you can move forward. Or there are companies where you're looking to pour gas on the fire. And either way, it's about driving change management and talent acquisition around a really quality product feature functionality set that you believe that you can drive revenue at scale. So the devil's in the details early on like this. You really need to look at 30,000. I call it spatial thinking. You need to get up above the canopy of the trees at 30,000 feet and ask yourself the question, where do we want to be and how do we want to get there? And then you need to be able to get down into 3 feet, get in the trenches and get it done. And so oftentimes you start with talent. Talent management is a key component to your ability to be successful. You typically have to be able to attract and retain the right folks. And there's a difference in culture between a shared experience and a lived experience, right? A lot of people talk about culture and the things that are important to them as a company, but you have to live that culture. And so things like being a macro man, I'm a macro manager, not a micromanager. My responsibility is to provide people with the tools, platform, resources, and capabilities to be successful. And then you're hiring A players to go out and do that because of their experience. And so you have to give them the resources to be successful and then let them go do that while at the same time inspecting what you expect all the way across the way, right? So your first 90 days in a company, whether you're transforming a business that is putting gas on the fire or you're revitalizing a business that is having challenges, it's generally all the same as it pertains to culture, talent management, and trying to drive rapid revenue expansion across your platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like, we look when we do strategic planning offsites, so we lead teams, we go through this process, and we're typically looking at a non-urgent point in time, I'll say as a generalization, to take that 30,000-foot view. But what I really appreciate of your approach, which any new manager really can do, you don't need to be the CEO to be able to take that approach, is you do look at big picture and saying, hey, what is the thing that we're trying to get this business to do? You're looking at the product, you're looking at the value proposition, the ability to drive revenue. And then the second part that I heard was those talent decisions to say, who are the folks that I need to deliver that? Because depending on what you're delivering, the folks might be different, but you need to take that 30,000-foot view on that. And I also liked how you're like from 3 feet, like it's really like, hey, what do we need to do today, tomorrow? So let's say we're talking to you, whoever's listening, you're a strategic leader, you're thinking about your technology, you're thinking about like how to evolve with the future. You are going to embrace a 30,000-foot thinking to set you up to do 3-foot thinking. And now you're looking at your technology and looking at blockchain and general ledgers and its applicability within, and I'll say a certain business. What is tokenization? Because I actually don't know what that means as a potato. And 2, how could our listeners look at evolving their technology stack more further into using blockchain or other services like that? Not necessarily Aventus, but just technology as a whole.
Yeah, so blockchain really, the best way to put it is digital ledger technology, right? And creating a digital transaction is tokenization at the end of the day. And so all things are tokenized, can be tokenized in a more systematic and fundamental way. All things have receipts and or transaction capability in your typical historical ERP systems. But tokenization is really what the world is moving to. I think you're going to find by 2030, even Larry Fink at BlackRock said all things are going to be tokenized by 2030. And that includes the reality that there will be a digital transaction tied to all things real world asset based. And so,
Can I ask really quick? Sorry to interrupt. Why the move towards tokenization? Like, what is the benefit? Is it trackability? Is it like authenticity? Is it security? Is it all of the above, none of the above?
all of the above, heavily built and deployed, but they're also siloed. And so there's very little interoperability in some of these solutions. Tokenization and blockchain really is a very efficient solution. And everybody's moving towards an interoperable capability around tokenization. So you can see a future in time where you buy a really cool leather jacket from Macy's and you'll receive a digital token receipt of that, and then also the jacket, such that if you sell that jacket or give that jacket away, you'll be able to transfer your digital token of that jacket to a wallet, as well as move the jacket along in its way. So it is a formal, fungible digital transaction ledger that doesn't go away and is very secure in its capability to transfer.
Okay, and then again, as I just think about this thing, layperson is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because you talked about leadership, you talked about change management, and from what I know of Aventus, it's creating a change not only as a company or for its users, but truly in the world around it in terms of how it uses it. So it's part of the use case that it can have call it transferability, because everybody is, instead of like a yellow, a blue, a green, everything is all a ledger and it uses a common ledger, assuming the entire system is on there.
Correct. That's exactly right. At the end of the day, you don't have siloed systems anymore. You have transferability, interoperability, efficiency in this process. It's really about efficiency in the supply chain, as well as your efficiency in delivery and security, right? So suddenly you have multiple layers that are far more efficient in your ability to track and transact. And that's really what tokenization is about. Most people know tokens, Bitcoin is a token, right? For example, it's a single transaction on a digital ledger, but really tokenization applies to all things digital ledger based, which is really what blockchain as a service and Web3 is all about.
Got it. And I ask because, we think about, Bitcoin, blockchain. And let's say today I went through like Jamboard is shutting down. So I have to change my solution from Jamboard to a different web solution. And as I'm also a CEO and talk to other CEOs, they see things like AI and they see things in, financial technologies, but then it's good idea and then incorporating it into transforming truly how they do business. So maybe not in 2030, maybe 2035 or whatever, businesses like mine and my clients, they're going to look at technology and say, hey, how the hell do I incorporate this stuff so that it actually does it? So my question is, let's say you were a CEO of one of those businesses and you were charged with doing the transformation such that it could incorporate this stuff. What questions would you start asking yourself and of your team?
Yeah, that's a heck of a question, because honestly, oftentimes when we talk to customers, they don't know the challenges that are facing in this change management approach, moving to a new technology over time, and some of it's occurring behind the scenes, so they're not even aware that some of their competitors are doing these implementing these new type of technologies. So from a revenue generating perspective, you have to attract talent that understand the technology, but also understand how to manage a two-sided sell, which is providing the customer the message that, hey, these may be challenges that don't seem like a challenge for you today, but I can assure you this is the way with which technology is changing. And there are great examples in the past, like Blockbuster and Netflix, of course, where some companies don't even exist anymore because they didn't keep up with the technical spectrum that was occurring. And the reality that is happening with Web3 and blockchain and tokenization. So the questions you typically want to talk to a customer about are, what are your long-term growth goals and scale? How do you want to drive efficiency across your technology platform? How do you apply that technology to drive customer retention and acquisition? And create a small percentage of churn within your customers? And how do you use technology to create 10x efficiency within your team itself? And how does that platform create interoperability from the front office to the back office so that you have a seamless capability of delivering an experience for your customer where it's very both robust and solves pain points that they oftentimes may not know that they have. So these are the kind of questions that you typically want to ask these organizations, because these are large investments oftentimes that companies have to make these transitions, because what's working they've invested 20 years in, and it's not that it's broken. The reality is the market's moving.
Yeah. And as I said here, we're recording this in 2024. I think in 2034, where is this going to be? One, because of either external trends, legal trends. Two, because, hey, is the customer going to demand it and or at least ask for it? And I think what I hear from your question is evolving your view on your organization to have that long-term technological view. Look at not just you as a business evolving and incorporating technology, but looking at the various silos, because you talked about them earlier, but having one of those silos be your customer and saying, hey, how can I create this integrated ecosystem, so to speak, that could work with itself to drive value. And then, from a people perspective, if you're looking into 2030, 2035, who are the people that are forward looking? Who are the people that are at least interested in learning this language? And who is hyper customer focused, that they can find opportunities for solutions where problems might not necessarily exist yet, but could arise in a couple of years. Did I capture most of that?
Absolutely. And remember, most of our customers oftentimes have customers, right? And so at the end of the day, this is significantly about brand loyalty and customer acquisition for their standpoint. So they're looking, how do I drive new revenue streams to my business? And digital revenue tech capabilities is something significant to them. You'll note that Gen Z and Gen Alpha, for example, are 6 times more likely to come in through an organization and stick if they come in through a digital capability through some of the new platforms that exist out there, because this is how they're used to using technology today. And so companies need to adapt to their customers, and our customers are adapting to their customers' needs.
My wry smile is because I think of the ecosystem that Apple has built that basically makes it impossible for you to leave as a customer because all of your devices are intertwined. So if you made life so much better for your employees that it was prohibitive for them to leave, but not in a negative way, it would be interesting. But that's what I basically hear you say is if you basically stack all the value pieces for your employee, for your customer, that is, the key part to not just cash, but long-term revenue, which is the kind of original part of our story. Shawn, as we wrap up today, and I know we could probably talk for hours and nerd out about this, anything you want our listeners to know or think about as they continue this next phase in their leadership journey? And then where can people get a hold of you to connect and chat some more?
At the end of the day, I think the only constant is change, right? And so whenever every company is going through these type of changes and approaches, I'd look spatially and ask yourself the simple question, what do I need to do to be a year ahead, 3 years ahead, 5 years ahead, and start making that change in the now? And a lot of that starts with your internal technology, your internal staff, and your internal capabilities. But at the same time, be a spatial thinker. Ask yourself the larger questions. It's very easy to get stuck down in the weeds. It's more difficult to look strategically and then come back and execute. And those that can go from 30,000 feet down to 3 feet and back to 30,000 feet are the ones that are often very both successful in their businesses, but build a really strong brand experience around themselves and their capability to be valuable to their current employer and employers in the future.
Yeah, everybody wants to work for or play with a winning team. So part of winning and being successful in the future is going to be really embracing that technology stack. And all the other stuff. Technology is only a part of it. Where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about your work?
Yeah, you're welcome to go to my LinkedIn, which is Shawn Mohr, or you can reach out to me directly at shawn.mohr@aventus.io.
Awesome. Shawn, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It was super fun, a pleasure, and gets me curious about the future of technology in ways I haven't quite thought of. And I guess that's the point, right? Thanks for being here.
Great. Thanks for having me, Anthony. Welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Folks, my guest today, Shawn Mohr, was the CEO at Aventus, driven by revenue, scalable, and encouraging everybody to be future thinking. Look 30,000 feet, look at the whole above the canopy, not just at your technological needs, which of course are important, on your people needs and your ability to continuously drive revenue. And then as you look as an organizational leader and how you're evolving your technology, you know, the saying, the best time to invest in your technology was 5 years ago, and the second best time is today. So what can you do as a strategy leader to drive forward your technological stack and your company? So my name is Anthony Taylor. Thanks for watching today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. Share it with somebody you know. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.